everybody! It's been a pretty long time since I've posted a new video, and I'm sure some of you have noticed. And today's video is actually going to be explaining that absence. But keep in mind that the majority of this video will be stuff that I filmed back in October, because I had planned to put this video up in October when I had only been gone from YouTube for about a month. So when you hear me say something like that, like how I've been gone for a month, that would be why. Because this was filmed back in October, and I just didn't really feel like refilming everything. Now, you will hear me mention that I had said something at the beginning of the video about dysautonomia, and that's also a reference to the original video that I had planned out. In my intro, I had explained that it was Dysautonomia Awareness Month, and that I was going to go into it more later. The first reason that I was pretty absent over the last month was that I was gone for a little over a week for a writing retreat in Bali. Now, I'm not going to speak too much right now on the retreat itself, but if you would like to see a video in the future where I share some of my pictures and just talk about some of my experiences with the retreat, I can do that. Just let me know in the comments. And obviously with this trip, that took a lot of planning leading up to it. Making sure I had everything that I needed, not only the basics, but things that I needed, to do my writing, like my computer and my passport and all that stuff, because I'd never been out of the country before. So it took a lot of planning leading up to it. And then once I got back, obviously I kind of had to adjust to getting back to daily life. Another thing that happened with this trip and getting back was that when I was returning, I was supposed to get back really late on a Friday night. However, my flight out of Taipei was delayed when we were getting ready for takeoff. We sat on the runway for a while. So when I landed in San Francisco, the people at the airport tried to rush me through all the security and, just all that. However, it still was not fast enough. And I missed my flight to come home. And I was stuck in the airport for an extra 8 or 9 hours because they didn't have a flight going out until 6 a.m. the next morning. And because the airline couldn't access the information on why there was a delay, they couldn't provide a hotel room for me. So I hung out in the airport all night, and I had a full-on anxiety attack and was just crying in the airport. Shout out to my big sister and another special someone who messaged me for a few minutes and just helped calm me down, because that was just an awful experience for me. Now, this kind of leads into the next part of the video, which is about anxiety and depression. I deal with both, and I've been dealing with both for about 2/3 of my life. And for anyone else that deals with one or both of these things, you already know that it is a constant struggle. So I suppose I'm really not going to be speaking too much about the anxiety side of things right now, but if you'd like me to do a video in the future to talk about my story, experiences, things that I've learned, or maybe you have specific questions that you'd like me to try and answer. Now, I'm not a licensed professional. I can only speak from my experience, or even try to take from the experiences of friends that I've had, because anxiety, depression, any of it is not a one-size-fits-all. We all experience it in different ways and to varying degrees. The main part of today's video is going to be about the depression side of things, because that is really the big reason that I've been so absent lately. Not only from YouTube, but also I've been pretty absent from Instagram. I got behind on my beta reading. Heck, I even procrastinated like crazy on doing this video. Now, to go back to the beginning a little bit for you, obviously I've dealt with depression for most of my life, and at this point it's pretty manageable for me. I'm not on any medications, and I don't see a counselor. I used to be on antidepressants in high school, but they didn't seem very effective for me, at least not the kind that I was on. And then another issue arose, and I didn't try any medications for a long time. And as far as the counselor, I did see one a few years back because I thought that it might be helpful, but I did not mesh well with the woman that I saw, and I did not go back to see her, and I did not try again to find a new counselor. And actually earlier this year, my doctor had prescribed me an anti-anxiety medication because she was hoping it would help me not only with my anxiety, but my depression issues as well. And Now, those medications, I can't really say if they helped with my anxiety. It did not seem like they were helping at all, but as soon as I started that medication and it was really in my system, it just, I don't know how to explain it. It kind of killed a part of me. Obviously, if you've watched any of my channel, you follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm a writer. I am a creative person. I like to write, I like to draw, I like to paint. I've made jewelry before. I crochet, all these little things. A lot of my interests are creative in some way. And when I was on that medication, it just killed all of that creativity for me. When I'm in the middle of writing my novel, I can get really immersed in it. Like the world around me just falls away. And it's like I'm watching a movie in my head as I'm writing it all out, and I can see it. Like I can see it on the screen. And when I was on that medication, it's like the screen just went black. Like I couldn't see it anymore. Even though I created this world, these characters, I'm the one writing this novel, I just couldn't see it anymore. And actually, I would say that probably added to my depression at the time too. So I stopped taking that medication and decided not to try that kind again. And some of you might be wondering how I manage my depression without the use of medication or a counselor. And I don't want to get into that too much in this video either, because honestly, if I were to talk about that, it would probably take up the whole video. So if you would like me to talk about that and hear about how I've been able to manage my depression over the years without medications and without a counselor or anything like that, leave me a comment below. And again, I am more than willing to talk about it. It's something that, it took me quite a few years to be able to get to that point where I have had more good days than bad. Now, as far as how the depression has been affecting me lately and causing me to fall behind on so many things, I'm going to see if I can try to explain this briefly. When I'm heading into a deeper bout of depression or a rough patch, let's say, I can feel it coming on. I can not only feel it, physically, but also just in my thoughts and the way that I might start thinking about things a little more negatively. When I can feel myself heading into one of those rough patches, I can essentially stop it and reverse it because of the coping mechanisms that I've been using over the years that have helped me. Now, it's not just like a 180. One day I'm heading into depression and then, I'm suddenly better. It's not like that. It's a process, and sometimes it might take a couple of days for me to really start feeling more myself again. However, over the last month, when I started to head into my rough patch, I didn't really feel it coming on. So I also don't know exactly when it started. And depending on when it did start, it seems like maybe I was just too focused on other things to even be aware of what was happening. So maybe it started before my trip to Bali and I was so focused on getting ready, I didn't feel it. Maybe it started on the trip in Bali and I didn't notice because I was in Bali. I was on this writing retreat with all these other women and I got to, meet Kristen Martin and Kayla Walker, and it was just, a crazy experience. Overall, I don't know exactly when it started, but somewhere around 2.5 weeks after I got back from Bali, that's when it hit me and I realized what was happening. The fact is that I failed to notice the signs. And then as far as getting back from Bali, with the huge time change, I was trying to get back on my normal sleep schedule. And so my sleep was all over the place and I was sleeping a lot more in general. Not only was I sleeping at night when I normally would, but I was falling asleep during the day. And I had chalked that up just to my trip and the time changes. I feel like I should also mention for anyone watching who maybe hasn't experienced depression before, again, it affects everyone differently. Some people experience insomnia, some people oversleep, some people overeat, undereat. It affects your sleep, your appetite, so many things. And because depression affects so many parts of your life, one of the things that it does as well, it usually makes you lose interest in the things that you like to do. Or maybe you're not necessarily losing interest in it, but it's adding to any self-doubt that you might already have. And that's what was happening for me. I wanted to write. I really did. I wanted to write. I love writing. But when I have depression set in that strongly, it really, really adds to my self-doubt, my self-worth, and as far as my writing, it it makes the imposter syndrome super strong. And so, I would look at some of the ladies from Bali posting all their videos and their pictures and talking about this great experience that they had, or how they were already working on their goals that we set in Bali. And don't get me wrong, I was very happy for all those ladies. It was very exciting to see that, and the fact that I got to meet them and be there for these experiences and to hear about their goals. But for me, it was also really hard because I felt like I was just failing at everything. I hadn't started working on my goal. I hadn't written since I got back home. I just felt like I was a failure overall, at least as a writer. I was able to realize that a lot of those thoughts and, that self-doubt and just everything that was happening with me was really the depression speaking. Now, you may remember at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that it is Dysautonomia Awareness Month. And I feel like that is a reason that I may have missed some of the signs of this bout of depression starting. I have a form of dysautonomia called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS for short. And when I got back from my trip from Bali, all of my POTS symptoms were hitting me really hard. It was so much worse than it had been before my trip. And that may have just been because of the trip itself. Going on the planes and dealing with the time zones and being in a place with different food, all of that. But the POTS, one of the things that it does just in general, because of everything behind it, it can make you very fatigued. And so me getting back and trying to get back on my sleep schedule and sleeping a lot more than I normally do, and just feeling kind of, crappy overall, I also had chalked up to the POTS symptoms being worse. It can already be really hard to just get through a normal day when the POTS symptoms are hitting me a lot stronger, because it makes you very fatigued. And so when I got back from my trip, I had also chalked up my sleeping and, sleeping a lot more than I normally do, up to the trip itself and the time zones, but also the POTS symptoms hitting me harder. Between the rough patch with the depression and then also having a really bad time with the POTS, it all just really compounded, and it just made everything that much harder. But at this point, I obviously am aware of what was happening, and I've been working to try and fix it and come out of the bout of depression, and I'm still not quite there. I've still been having a really hard time at night, I've noticed. But again, I have my coping mechanisms and my strategies to work my way out of it. And so I'm hoping that that'll happen before too long, and the POTS symptoms are already better. So there's also that makes everything a lot easier when I'm not having a rough day with that condition. Now that I'm aware of everything that was happening and I'm working to kind of get myself out of it, I'm planning on having my videos coming in regularly for everyone again, and getting back to my writing and working on my goals, which will be one of the videos coming up very soon because we are in the last quarter of the year and I need to post a quarterly goals video. Now that you've watched everything that I had to say back in October when I was only gone for about a month from YouTube, and obviously at this point it's been longer than that, most of it's really been for the same reasons. The depression, once I realized what was happening, it did get a little better, but did not entirely go away. And I do think that some factors for that were health issues, as well as a lot of changes that I've been through in the past year in my personal life. It's just been particularly hard the past couple months, and especially when we were coming up on the holidays, it hit me pretty hard. As far as the POTS goes, there are just so many things that come into play with it that I guess I can't really say that it's gotten better necessarily, just because of how it affects the body and how fatigued it makes you feel and everything. I would say that it's probably about the same, maybe worse, and it varies from day to day. But overall, it does affect my energy levels and my motivation and just overall how I'm feeling. And although I haven't been able to see a doctor for it recently because of some issues with insurance and also the distance to get there, I suppose it's probably safe to say that I deal with chronic pain. Now, I do have a few medical issues and various kinds of pain that I deal with daily or weekly at least. But the major one that I believe I've mentioned before in my videos is the fact that I had a spinal surgery back in 2017. And since then, I've still had some issues with it. And as you can imagine, the spine is a very major part of your day-to-day life. And when you're having pain, it makes even the smallest things pretty difficult. At the end of the day, I am trying to work through all of this and some days just kind of push through it so that I can get back to doing some of the things that I was doing before, like YouTube videos, writing sprints, staying in contact with people in the writing community, and then actually doing my own writing. Because to be honest, I don't think I've written a word in the last month. And it's just all those things that I talked about in the video. If you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to talk about in one of my next videos, please leave me a comment. And if you'd like to stay up to date on when I do post new videos in the future, hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Twitter @SadieMcEwen. Thank you for watching today, and until next time, click!